all four now are grouped and gathered. We've got, yeah, pretty much all the big important people of the story now all gathered. I was I was like in between being impressed but also disappointed in Percival's just appearance this chapter. There were multiple times he had like a cool main character looking moment, but because of just how Percival looks, it looked so silly. Like I will say that the color page was really nice. I've always really liked the way that Nakaba colors things in this kind of like weird pastel water paint design. I think it's is it water paint? I think pastels is what more like chalks and stuff. I don't know. Either way, whatever this style is, I just enjoy it. I've always enjoyed like his color palette, and it looks cool on Gwen. Like I like the green too. I think the green looks good. Makes me wonder like what exactly like if there's what exactly is going to be that whole sunshine storyline behind like why she has it and exactly how that goes. But we see like just kind of like knights around, standing around rather. There's like stuff going on, obviously into some chaos. Meliodas is there. There was a guy that was like with Meliodas, like this dude with like this, like I can't tell if it is his helmet regularly because there's like some guys with like the little pointed tip of their helmet, or if it's like part of his helmet and he's looking around. But I'm pretty sure that's just his normal helmet. I don't see any lines to indicate spinning, but he's got like this crown with like not crown helm with like 3 points with like a halo in the middle. I just thought that looked really cool. But Meliodas has to have some form of opponent that can actually hold him off for more than 5 seconds. Otherwise, like he should be able to capture Peligard. I know Peligard has like the potential to pull out one of those like spell beads and teleport away, but Meliodas in this kind of scenario definitely should be able to take that from no problem and prevent him from getting away. And like I know normally Meliodas is a little bit more either chill or aggressive when it comes to like dealing with people, especially enemies. But in a scenario like this where like this is like a borderline war, like it's literally just a war waiting for the war to happen between two kingdoms, and he knows how powerful and like dangerous Arthur is, so he should like instantly be like, okay, we need to capture this guy, we need to get information from him and figure out what's going on from here. But I like there's another guy obviously, but at the same time, how long is that guy gonna hold off Meliodas? Like Meliodas, logically, the only person stronger than him is Arthur in Britannia. So a character like what Peligard shouldn't be really anything to him. But Peligard like just his normal kind of blaze stuff. Percival ends up blocking it with his hero type magic, just kind of like shielding his group. Like the first part we see Percival standing there, like in the background of like Peligard in the top panel, and you have Percival standing there. He's got the sword like out in front of him. You can see some of his like weird magic aura all around him. That one looks pretty cool. And then the next one you see like him standing there from a different angle. You know, his friend's safe. It's cool, but he like it's goofy because of like his outfit, the fact he's so short. He's just like a small dude in general, and he's not like Asta small. Like he's like Kid Goku small, and even like his sword is tiny. Like it's really hard to like take him seriously. It'd be like trying to take Frieza seriously. There's a little bit of creepy factor when it comes to like actually what he would look like, but you know, like he's like what 4'5" or something, even maybe shorter. It'd be hard for me to take him seriously because it's like, well, I'm either gonna laugh or die. So it's just like let's just go. But Percival's about that same boat, and I mean his goofy outfit on top of that just seems it's an extra layer. But he's going in to attack Peligard. I do like seeing Percival's sword with the magic on it, and it's like in the elongated magic blade shape, but it also has the little chibi Percivals. I think that's just really neat looking. I think visually that's just a really cool way for his like attacks to be depicted. What would be really cool would be like if he swung his sword and the blade was there, but like maybe like little drops of his magic, little globs kind of shot out, like kind of just like imagine if it was like splatter or something, like if it was like blood or whatever. But it's just like these little guys just kind of float out of his sword, and then they jump on his opponent, and then they can use him for whatever, like explode or even absorb some of his like spells before he uses it, like interfere with like him trying to cast spells, or just trying to like eventually hold him down or something, just trying to like weigh him out. I think that'd be pretty cool. The versatility of Percival's magic is the most interesting thing. And I think if like Nakaba, I think Nakaba has to be really careful with like how far he goes with the hero magic because I don't want him to make Percival like a one man kind of like not like a one-man army, but like a one-man army from the standpoint of the story where he has everything, and it makes the other characters like lose value to be like in scenarios if Percival can just outperform them at everything, like healing, utility, power, defense. So it just makes some of the other characters be like they're just props almost, and I don't want that to happen. I like the dynamic so far between at least the main cast. I don't know how well it's gonna go with like all the Four Knights back. I mean, I guess with like the main cast and the Four Knights, that's like what, 7 people? Well, no, because it's like, yeah, we got the four, and then Danny, Annie, or sorry, Danny, Donnie, Annie, um and Nasians, or however his name's pronounced. So I guess that's 7, and it was the seven deadly sins before, so it makes sense of like you'd be able to balance that many people directly in this main cast. So I mean, that's looking pretty good. But yeah, like I said, I just don't want like the other members of the main cast right now to lose relevancy. I'm not a fan of when that happens to main cast members. But there's a really cool panel as well. I really like that Pelagard uses Immortal Fire, and Percival's like he's got his elongated blade. It just looks really cool from a visual standpoint. Him going to face it down, and he goes and slashes it, breaks up, but Pelagard is just like controlling it from there, and he's having all these fireballs pretty much come out of it and start moving to go after Percival, like the whole homing and tracking ability that he has, and how they'll always go to his mark. But Percival, we know that his like weird hero type magic head can absorb degrees of magic and elements. So like unless he's gonna use anything really powerful or anything really dangerous, like this is just gonna obviously just deal with like people with like a very basic move set like this. But here we have Pelagard using a type of fire that burns magic. I thought that this was going to be a perfect counter to Percival's style, because then it would like Percival's magic, if it's able to absorb stuff, even people that seemingly are stronger than him, and it's more of just kind of like if you have no way to kind of counter just like some absorption type ability, that's that. Like if there's a big enough gap, I assume his ability would get crushed. But if you're within the range, it's like, okay, well, you got to get around it. But something like the ability to destroy magic in different shapes and forms obviously would be able to be like a direct counter, because how are you going to destroy like a magic based attack with this? Oh, it's something that destroys magic. So there's already a couple things in the Seven Deadly Sins verse, like Absolute Cancels one, and I don't remember if they had fire that burned magic before. I mean, I know it's one of those concepts in fantasy stuff. It's not always used, but like it's it's one of those ones that you got a good chance of getting one or the other. I mean, like most of the I'm trying to think of like any other besides, like I know there's now for at least there's one in the Seven Deadly Sins Four Knights world. Mereoleona is in Black Clover, and Natsu for Fairy Tail has this as well. Like there's not every fire user is gonna have it. I mean, I guess in Nama's bum ass, but but it is just useful, obviously, like directly in a verse like this. Like a lot of people probably aren't going to have like a direct like ready counter to that kind of ability. But then here comes in Gwen, and she ends up pointing at it and then causes the fireball to explode. I wonder like exactly what her ability is, or like in detail of like what she did. I'm fine if she's the most powerful of the Four Knights right now, because like Percival, I don't think should be the most powerful. He's the least experienced. Like right now, I think he's more of that untapped potential. Whereas somebody like a Sunshine Escanor person, having a more trained and being again the most powerful of that, like demanding more outward level of like kind of that like flex fortitude of their character, this kind of aligns, and it would make sense, I think, if Sunshine is affecting her right now anyway, similar to how it went with Escanor. Her being extremely powerful in this instance would make sense. Like maybe she'll get weaker as the night goes. I mean, that's a possibility. I'm wondering if Nakaba's going to do that again with the whole. Well, okay, well maybe this is like the equivalent of the big buff Escanor, and then at night Gwen is going to become like a small, much weaker girl, maybe so more frail. I think that could be interesting. One thing that, because like one thing I've always enjoyed with the series was that dynamic between the two versions of Escanor, because you had the Escanor who was obviously like a badass doing lots of cool stuff, and then you had like the smaller Escanor who was obviously weak, but he was like a nice guy. He was friendly. He had a really good heart. Like probably one of my favorite moments in the whole series was when he was fighting the Enduraspore. Like that's one of the best parts because it was just one of those things like he doesn't care about like what's gonna happen to him or what's going on with his power. He was just trying to do his job, trying to make sure that he could save some people and be, the best he could be. Because I think a lot of people forget stuff when it comes to like series when you compare like independent groups to militarized groups. Like that's one of the things I think a lot of people forget when it comes to like say like Black Clover. It's a little more direct in Four Knights, but it's way more obviously like they or not Four Knights, Four Knights and Seven Sins because obviously there's way more knights and way more knight like activity. Whereas Black Clover, the Magic Knights, they are still knights of their own world, but it's not the that one for one. So obviously there's different rulings. It seems like imagine being William in a I mean I guess the Lucius stuff, but like imagine being William in a normal Knights thing. Like people would be out to kill you on your side. Like no honor whatsoever left, no loyalty. But here we have Gwen, like just obviously, like I said, snuffing out Pelagard's attack. I like the golden flecks. I thought that was cool, and like how it has the sparkles or the little bits of like gold fire and gold magic just around her. I thought that was really cool. And just the interaction between her and Percival was really neat. Like he's just excited, and she's like, "Oh, are you Gwen?" She's like, "Oh, how did you know that?" Just a nice little interaction so far. I think I might like the dynamic between Percival and Gwen. Seems like it's gonna be kind of like a funny setup, which I'm always up for, like really good entertaining character dynamics. Then here comes in Tristan. He's upset, throwing a little kind of like upset fit because he's like telling Gwen like I told you to stay at the castle. Gwen's like, yeah, whatever, I don't really care. And then obviously the follow up, you got like you got Lancelot, and it's just one of those moments where obviously they're setting up, showing all of the four knights of the prophecy, all the four knights of the apocalypse. And that's when Pelagard is just like hyped and ready for like a fight. I don't think Pelagard is like gonna do too well in here, but here I will say though, factually, we know that he's like seemingly, I guess I'll say seemingly, not he is, he's seemingly around level with Ironsides. And Ironsides Sirius would have crushed the whole main cast. And though that's not, this is a much more powerful group, obviously the four named title characters of the series, they had Percival, and Percival, no, I would definitely say Percival's the weakest out of the four right now. Still that gap of like Percival being that much in fear of Ironsides, like when he was starting to get serious. I would imagine right now he'd be able to take on the four knights right now. I think if Ironside, just given what we were shown, he could beat them at the moment. Like I don't think any of them are even close to obviously like their big level of power that they're going to be in the prophecy. Especially obviously Percival is a good example of that. Like he's nowhere near ready yet, and they're all pretty young too. I think that one comment from Guinevere when she's like, when you're 20, I'll be 16, because it's like the fact that like around 20, or age 20 or so for a lot of them, obviously not Percival unless he ages, will be around that same kind of area that Arthur is about. So I think that would align a lot of them up more age and story wise. And then like in the span of 4 years or so, if they're able to get to that, where they're at now, to that, prophesized legend level that they're, gonna be at. But Pelagard, like the problem I have with this scenario is not the four knights, because it's not a problem. It's more of like the issue I see in this situation is that Pelagard, though I think that he potentially could take the four knights. I think that at their current level, I think that he has the potential to beat them, just based off of where I think he sits narratively in the story. The issue though the issue though in the scenario is Meliodas. Meliodas should be able to literally show up and stomp in Pelagard. There is another guy he's got to deal with. Maybe that's Ironsides or somebody of equal standing. But I mean, the four knights, sure, I could see them, being in threat to the four knights, somebody at that level. But like Meliodas, the only person that should be stronger than Meliodas is Arthur. Unless we get one of those things where it's like Arthur has a couple people in his group that can contend with Meliodas. Like maybe Meliodas isn't outright more, like maybe Meliodas is more powerful than them, but it's one of those things where he would have to leave Camelot in order to fight him because it'd be too dangerous, or he would have to kind of like go into a state where it's like I have to immediately kill them, and that would be dangerous for those guys, because it'd be like, okay, I know he can kill me, I can bait him out and do some tricks, but if if he gets super serious and goes to eradicate me immediately, then I'm done. Like it'd be one of those things where it's just kind of like a rough situation of like how those characters would trade. I think that'd be cool. Maybe like they have like 2 or 3 guys that it's like, okay, they can contend with Meliodas. I think the coolest thing would be like how Arthur shows up since Guinevere's here, and we have like a moment of like a skirmish between Arthur and Meliodas. Because one, I think it'd be good that we have Meliodas to do something with Meliodas. Because Meliodas obviously was the previous main character, but in Four Knights, I want him to very similar to how Naruto is in Boruto, where he exists, we see him sometimes, but we know he's got other stuff he has to do, and he's got his own responsibilities that kind of like make it so he can't just free roam. But if you were to see him in that fight, you're gonna actually see the flex of a main character who's gone through his whole main character journey. Like I would want to see Meliodas, if he's gonna step out, stretch his legs, just dominate somebody. He was the previous main character. He deserves the respect. But with Arthur is the logical character that would be the strongest and more dangerous for him. It'd be really cool to get a display of what the Four Knights are dealing with. And I think it would make a lot of sense given that they're all grouped up now. And with Guinevere. I think the narrative, if something maybe happened that would hurt Arthur a little bit, maybe wound him, and he's got to recover, would be a really good way to go into like a second arc. Because I feel also that this arc, well, what are we at right now? 60, 61? I mean, we've probably got maybe like, my guess is within 15 chapters, and then we'll move into like the next kind of part of the story, what might be the first like major arc, like set arc with like a big boss. That's because this feels more similar to how the first big chunk of Seven Deadly Sins was, all the way up through like Hendrickson and whatnot, where it was more about like introduction, getting the story set, understood, and laying the groundwork out for things to come. This When you look at like the Hendrickson fight, Hendrickson wasn't really that big of a threat, and it wasn't anything too crazy, especially with like the main castle roofed up. I think with Arthur though, there's a much better opportunity to obviously put up the big villain. We know this is the big villain, but use it in a way that it's like beneficial for both. Like maybe he somehow gets hurt through something with Guinevere. Maybe Guinevere distracts him, and that's the only reason they're able to get a cut in. Like maybe he would have been able to wreck them, but because Guinevere, there was a moment of hesitation that they got an opening that normally they wouldn't have. Stuff like that, where it'd be really cool to see how the story progresses for us. So because like if Arthur would say wounded, it'd make a lot of sense that like build them more time. Maybe that could be for later, it doesn't have to be now. But it would be something that could also be like, okay, he's gonna send out more knights because he's pissed off and he wants to get like a little bit of revenge and maybe research his opponents more. He knows what they look like, so he knows how to find them. Stuff like that, I think, would be a really cool way to direct things. So we just gotta. That's one of the things. So it's just going to be a little bit of waiting time when we get to the villain that Meliodas is fighting, and that's going to be one of the big tells. Because if it's like fodder, then he's going to run through it, and then he should be able just to jump right to Peligard and no diff him. Anyway, other than that, though, comment below. Tell me your thoughts are about this chapter, and tell me your thoughts about like what's coming up, and like would you prefer? Would you prefer, I don't know, Ironsides or Arthur or something like that? I think Arthur's the best decision for moving a character there, like moving him to right next to, just like move him right there with Meliodas. Have a skirmish. I think it'd be really good because then we could have like a really cool fight with Meliodas. One, it would give a lot of respect to Meliodas fighting like the top tier of the whole verse, but also it would give a lot of credit to Arthur because Arthur beating Meliodas, or at least pushing him like in a direct way that shows that he's stronger, would do a lot for building up the tension and power at that, the big bad. Whereas it wouldn't be bad for Meliodas because that's somebody logically Meliodas would lose to, so it doesn't make him look bad. That's just, we know the story enough to know where that fight would go. Meliodas should know where that fight would go. It wouldn't be anything I would imagine surprising to him. But anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video for the like, but subscribe and check out my other videos. From that, appreciate it. Subscribe and thank you all for listening. Bye.